Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. This is Laurie Smith on Blog Talk Radio, and it is Thursday morning, 6 o'clock here in Calgary, Alberta, September the 23rd. I'm happy to be here. This is One Child Abuse Survivor to Another, and we're on for 30 minutes. It's a live internet streaming radio broadcast from blogtalkradio.com, and the chat room is open if anybody would like to sit in there. I want to continue talking about the shame-rage connection from www.angerresources.com, and that's where we left off yesterday, talking about the shame-rage connection. It's quite interesting. I'm actually getting a lot out of it, so I hope you are too. And thanks, everybody, for tuning in. I appreciate it. I'm not a counselor or therapist. I don't hold any certificates in those areas. I'm just a private citizen paying to do my own blog talk shows, and really because I'm a survivor of child abuse, and I wanted to be one more voice out there for other survivors who can't raise their voices or are just, suffering along in silence, really, because that's what I was doing for a long, long time. And also, just to join all the other people out there, that are speaking out against child abuse and standing up for children. And so I just wanted to kind of add my voice, right? And so I thought, hey, I've got a voice, I can use it. And so, you have to listen at your own discretion. I cover, everything to do with child abuse and abuse, period, like domestic violence, sexual assault, name it. So the topics are very sensitive, you know what I mean? If you haven't heard a whole lot about abuse, it could make you uncomfortable, so you have to listen at your own discretion and know what's good for you to listen to. So if you're uncomfortable with the show, just turn it off. It's your prerogative, it's your decision to make. And if you're a young person under the age of 18, I ask that you have permission to listen to my show. And I always say this on every show, because I'm the Canada Regional Director for Dreamcatchers for Abused Children. And we're standing up to fight for children's lives, it's a volunteer position, and we all are working really, really hard to promote awareness and education to prevent and stop child abuse, right? So you have to keep yourself very safe. And I just ask people under the age of 18 to have someone older, like an adult or teacher, counselor at school, or coach or mentor, somebody who you trust, who's proven themselves trustworthy, to listen to the show with you, and then see if it's something that you should be listening to. And then if you have questions or whatnot, you'll have somebody there to help you find some answers, to see, just to sort of, so you won't be wondering what we're talking about. There's not very many people actually talking about survivor issues on mainstream media. So it's only places like Blog Talk Radio that you're going to hear anything like this, because the mainstream is not talking about this, right? So, and this whole situation about abuse is pretty much the same. I mean, we see the headlines in the paper, we see what's happening out there with children being abused and whatnot, but then we never hear anything about it afterwards, and we never hear anything about survivor issues or mainstream. Maybe some small town has a newspaper article out about it, but it's just not mainstream. So if you might not have heard a whole lot about it, and if that's the case, you just have to, get some help with the questions. Make sure you have an adult listen to the show with you, and if you're a survivor, make sure that you are comfortable with the material. Otherwise, just turn it off, right? Because you can trigger people, right? The information. So you want to be very careful what you're listening to. So we'll get right on into this here this morning. It's from angerresources.com, and that's www.angerresources.com, but it's just one R, ANGERESOURCES.com /shame-rage, SHAMERAGE.HTM. And we were going over this stuff all week. It's quite interesting, and we left off yesterday just talking about the fact that, someone wrote a life script for us. That's what Dave Decker says here. That someone basically, whoever our life script is written for us as children by our parents or caregivers. And if somebody writes a bad life script for us, well, then we're sort of forced to live it, to play it out, right? And it's literally as if you were enlisted to act out a role in a drama that was written and directed by somebody else and produced by somebody else. And unfortunately, it says that someone didn't have your best interests at heart. So what makes this even worse is that there is a lifelong commitment to this production with a no escape clause. So I found that quite interesting. And it says exactly what is the contract that you had with the writers, the directors, and the producers of this script. It says the contract is based on a set of unrealistic, distorted, and rigid core beliefs. And these are the rules and values that you attempt to live by, what you expect from yourself, other people, and the world around you. So that's what we were kind of talking about yesterday. And it says being put down, ridiculed by others, ignored, by others. It says give you the message that you didn't really count and that you are unimportant and of little value. And this does not help you feel very good about yourself, and it has a potential to create anger and even rage at times. So this is he's talking about the whole shame-rage connection. Like, what's the connection between shame and rage? And shame, especially associated with child abuse of any type, it is horrible. It's not even our shame, and it belongs to the abusers, right? But we carry it. We take it on as survivors due to a lot of reasons, a lot of psychological, emotional reasons, and low self-esteem, low self-worth, and depending on how severe the abuse was and what type of situation you were in with no support, that can be very much internalized and turn into this rage, and that's what happened to me. And I had a real rage inside of me, and I knew my inner child was raging because I could see her in there, raging mad. And I thought, man, if she ever gets out, good luck. But as a young person, I was often raging and angry, and had a real hard time controlling my anger as far as being able to stop myself from saying hurtful things to people. If I thought that somebody was saying something against me, I'd get really vicious. But I was really just following what my mom was like, because I was just mirroring my mom, because my mom was a vicious woman. And so, she had no problem in lashing out physically, verbally, emotionally, right? And so I kind of just took on her behavior after a while, right? And that's so sad, because I didn't want to be like that, you know what I mean? But I had to learn how to not be like that. I had to actually learn to not do that. Whereas, that's very, very sad when you have to undo that kind of damage, you know what I mean? But, lots of people deal with anger and rage in very unhealthy ways, you know what I mean? Road rage and all this. And I used to have road rage. So this website's really cool because it does talk a lot about what is anger, and do you have an anger-related issue? There's a test you can take, and information about road rage and whatnot, right? So it's not just abused children who would experience rage and anger problems, you know what I mean? But I'm bringing this up because I wanted to see what the connection was, and I typed in shame and rage, and of course it brought this website up, right? So I'm finding this very interesting. So we'll just continue on where we left off yesterday, and that was that it says, as adults, they are big, strong, and powerful enough to go right back at the other person, even if it means becoming disrespectful, explosive, and abusive themselves. So if somebody says something to us, especially if we were abused as children, we're big enough, strong enough, and powerful enough now to go back at them, and even if it means being disrespectful, explosive, and abusive at times. And I know I was, because as soon as somebody would get in my face, even in my 30s, I was like this, and if somebody said something to me that was remotely threatening, I'd be in their face real quick. Wasn't the type to be backing down and sitting down and in the corner and crying. I'd be like, you want to be careful what you say around me, because I will definitely do something about it. That wasn't necessarily to threaten their life. It was to say, if you don't stop your behavior, I'll take you on. As far as taking you here, if it was somebody at work, I'd be like telling them I'll take you on and I'll take you to the management. We'll get this solved, because I was like, wanting to, I was really, that's my main thing, is because I was abused as a child. I'm very much overprotective of myself now. So it's like, if somebody says, I don't even give anybody the opportunity to apologize, because it's like, once somebody's in my face, I'm like, you know what, I will not tolerate that. And as an adult, I have the choice to not allow myself to be abused, and as a child, I was forced to live that, so many of us are. And so as an adult, I was like, no way. I refuse to take any more garbage and crap off of anybody. So, I almost become a bit aggressive, and I've had to kind of learn to kind of calm down first, to try to diffuse the situation instead of getting so irate. Because, I'd be irate. I'd be like, you don't want to mess with me, you're messing with the wrong person. And that's then people see you as an aggressive type maybe, and a bit kind of taking things over the top, and that was me. It was always either all or nothing. And so, I've had to learn how to calm down and try to mediate and try to relax, and just to realize that people do say stupid things and do dumb things in the workplace and other places, right? But I still don't take any abuse from anybody. And if somebody doesn't, take the appropriate steps to apologize for something, if they're really being rude, I definitely will let them know. Because I'm like, you don't have any right to treat people like that, and especially me. So if you're going to be like that, then we'll have to cut ties. But I used to quit jobs all the time because of that, and change jobs, and I mean I still kind of do that because I refuse to work with abusive people. And whereas somebody who may have not grown up abused just is allowed, like a duck, like water off a duck's back, they just blow it off. But for me, it's a serious, serious issue, and they have no idea how serious it is. Because if they were not abused as children, they have no idea what that does to a person, to an adult survivor, right? The whole issue surrounding workplace abuse and people being abusive at work, So I have a real hard time with people who are abusive at work, and I've actually had to learn how to kind of calm down and then see if I can solve it before actually just leaving and quitting the job and telling them all to F off, because I just don't want to take any more abuse from anybody. I'm really tired of it, and I got sick and tired of it, and so I've cut out a whole lot of my family members too because they're still very toxic and very much in denial and just want to see a one-way picture and don't care. So they're gone. I don't have anything to do with them, and that's just the way it has to be because I just life is too short to be hanging around with people who are abusive and toxic. Are they going to ever change? Not unless they see a website like this, or get some help with their own issues. Right? So, I mean, do I have to continually take people's garbage? No. But it does, you can't just, go into a protective bubble somewhere and stay away from everybody because, then you never learn how to trust. You never learn how to build these relationships, and there's always the potential that you could get hurt. That's the way it is. But, we do have to still, have boundaries of what we will allow people to do to us in our lives, what we will consider acceptable, what we won't, So I won't take any more abuse from anybody as far as that goes. And if somebody is rude, I'm very much demanding an apology. And that goes for bosses, it goes for anybody, you know what I mean? I'm corporation leaders and stuff. I mean, I've actually asked, top executives to apologize to me and asked for it in writing, and asked for it in public. Because I'm like, what, I was horrifically abused as a child, and I refuse to take your garbage. You know what I mean? I'm not doing it. So you owe me an apology. And if they don't apologize, I tell you, I'm out. I'm gone. Because I choose to hang around with people who are good people and who care about people. And life is too short to be messing around with people that are just rude and going to bring us down, right? So this is my thing. But anyway, it says here, these shaming messages also communicate that the world around you is a frightening and dangerous place. You never quite fit in or find anywhere that feels comfortable or safe. It says that means you cannot really trust other people, and you need to be constantly wary to avoid being hurt and disrespected by others. So this is kind of what we were just talking about. It says you start to believe that in order to be okay, you need to play a role that presents a facade to everyone around you. Sadly, along with this role, there is an intense fear that at some point others will actually see through this false image and realize how truly bad and flawed you really are. Then you think it is just a matter of time before they will judge, disrespect, or abandon you. And this makes it very difficult to connect in an emotionally meaningful way with just about anyone. So, see, this is just the issue. You take on this role of, being, sort of someone different than you really are. And then if you think somebody actually knew who you were, then, of course, it's hard to, you think, oh, they wouldn't like me, they would just judge me, or just leave me, or they wouldn't want to be my friend, or they wouldn't want to be in this relationship. And I mean, and this is sad, but actually quite often is true. But I figure, hey, people should know who the real me is, so I'm just me all the time, and if people don't like me, that's fine. Not everybody's going to like me. I don't like everybody myself. And, but they don't have to be disrespectful, because I'm not going to be disrespectful to them. So, we do have to learn to realize that, yeah, they're not everyone's going to like us, for sure. And especially when they find out you've been abused, because many people, just can't handle that. They just don't even want to know it. But I thought, I don't have a whole lot of support in my life anyway, so I don't really care. So I started speaking out and wrote my blog. So that's the whole issue. And I thought, I don't care. This needs to come out. I need to break the silence. And if I had already lost all my friends anyway, so I thought, oh, who cares? You know what I mean? It's like, people will either like me or they won't. But by reaching out, all these hands started reaching out to me. Hundreds and hundreds of hands started reaching out to me. People just like myself and who had struggled along in this healing journey, and had been, working through it and doing so good. They put their hands out to me and said, you can do it. we can do this. It's awesome. So that's the thing. It is really cool to have good support in your life. And so, but if you don't allow yourself to reach out and, take that step, right, because of the whole trust issue, then you never get to develop those relationships, those good relationships, right? So that's why it's not good to, to keep yourself all in a bubble and sort of just all to yourself, you know what I mean? Because you never get to develop these awesome relationships, right? Because there are good people out there. That's what I have discovered. So, and I always used to think, is there anybody good out there? But I knew there was, right? The whole issue was just had to convince my inner child that. So, because my inner child wasn't so sure about that. So what fuels the contract and keeps the script alive in your day-to-day life is your own negative thought process. So this script that was written for us, this life script, if you've been abused and in some way or form as a child, you were given this life script by somebody who wrote it and directed it for you, and you're expected to play this whole thing out, right? So it says what fuels the contract and keeps the script alive in your day-to-day life is your own negative thought process. So it says you have accepted the shaming statements and actions by others as your reality, and it is as if they have found a place in your head and your heart and have taken over your way of thinking and feeling about yourself and the world around you. So you have learned the lines that you are expected to know and rehearsed them over and over. Now the original shamers are no longer even necessary to carry on the painful legacy of what you have been handed. So this is just it. So it's, all this stuff, all of these harsh, words that were told to us as children, that really set in and really did some damage and some hurt, to children. It's very hard on children. Once we accept that and we think, okay, that must be true what they're saying about me, and then it becomes our reality. So if it's just how we feel about it. We actually just take it on. So we learn the lines and then we just rehearse them over and over again. By saying, oh, I guess I don't count. I'm not lovable. I'm not a good person, or whatever the abuser told us, right? Or I am ugly and not a good person, or whatever it was, right? So then we start to believe it. So then the original people that actually did the actual abusing don't even have to be around anymore, because we can just continue it on in our own minds. So that's what he's talking about. And that's that whole issue of, we have to feel differently about ourselves. We can't just say it and not believe it. Like, with self-affirmations and whatnot, it doesn't do any good to say, it does do some good to say it, because eventually you start to believe it. But I'm just saying, if you're going to say something like, I do count, I do matter, you need to believe it on the inside, right? Or I deserve that abuse. That's another big one, because a lot of people who have been abused think for some reason it's their fault. And I never had an issue with that. I knew whose fault it was, and I was mad. But some children, it depends on the psychological damage and just how much the child takes in, as far as like believing those statements that the abuser said. I mean, I believe some of it. I did feel like maybe I was worthless and stupid, and I've always had an issue with that. So I have an issue as an adult feeling that I'm stupid and a little bit lesser than, right? But as far as thinking that the abuse was my fault, no, I've never had a problem with that, because I knew whose fault it was. It wasn't mine. Thing is some children don't know that. Then they grow up to be adults and they think that the abuse was their fault. So even to say a statement like, oh, I did not deserve that abuse, is hard for some people, because they take on this shame and the guilt role, right, where it's like, well, no, I must have been a bad kid, or I must have done something wrong, or it was me, or, you know what I mean? It's all this stuff the abusers put on us, right? And it's not right, because it's never a child's fault. It's the abuser's fault. It's whoever the abuser was in the situation. It is their fault because they are choosing to abuse. How could it possibly be a child's fault? But they do often, abusers like to make it look like it's your fault, because that's their power and control, right? So it's like, even saying something like, yeah, I did not deserve that abuse is hard for some people. And for me, I had no problem believing that one, right? Because it's like, I knew I didn't deserve that. And I do, and I still know that. But some people don't. But you have to, it says you have to believe it on the inside, right? It says your self-talk, the words, phrases, and sentences that you think to yourself becomes negative and punishing. And this is Dave Decker here. It says this creates an atmosphere within you where you continually judge and condemn yourself and others for shortcomings and mistakes. It says you have now fully integrated the role that you were expected to play in this life script that was produced for you. This is the internalization of the shaming things that were said or done to you. You may even find yourself saying the very same words and phrases to yourself that you heard from others so many years ago. So you may call yourself, like for instance, stupid, ugly, or a loser. If part of your life script is to be the angry young man or woman, you may end up thinking about others in equally disrespectful and demeaning terms, right? So we just take on the role that we were given, right? And that's, that we might even call ourselves these names, as well as other people. Pretty soon we're thinking somebody else is stupid or somebody else is ugly or a loser, because abuse is just passed on. It's something that we learn behaviorally. You pick up this stuff. So if you were verbally abused as a child, you probably will go on to verbally abuse others unless you recognize the behavior and learn how to stop doing it. Not every child would do that. Now that's a fact. They always say, that, and this is a fact, that not every person who's been abused will go on to abuse their children or others, right? I mean, it's just not the case. But it can happen, and that's the whole cycle of abuse, and it does happen. So we have to recognize this stuff too. And I remember, when I was growing up, my mom had a really foul mouth. I mean, she could swear like a sailor, like that term, like swear like a sailor. She had one of the worst foul mouths I've ever heard in my lifetime. She would cuss out my dad. She would cuss out me, my brothers, just whoever was around, right? And it was just taking her abuse, right? Whether it's physical, verbal. And she had the worst mouth on her. I won't repeat the words, but the thing is I did write a book and I did repeat them. She was a horrible woman. She got that from her mother. And her mother was like that too, very abusive, physically, verbally, emotionally, very unstable woman. And my mom was also very unstable, and so was my dad. So they would, they taught me how to cuss, right? And a lot of people thought that I picked that up on the street somewhere, but because my parents would never go to the neighbor's house and call the neighbor a cunt, right? I could just see my mom going over to some neighbor's house and calling her a slut, oh, you're a slut, But she would say that to us. Right. My parents, that's the whole issue, right? They were very good to other people, just not their own families and not their own children and not each other. Right? So not their own family. They were not good to us. Now, they were really good to other people. And they had a lot of friends, right? Because they were so good and so manipulative at how to gain support emotionally for their own issues, how to manipulate a whole lot of people, right? So that's how abusers are quite often. So, my mom taught me how to cuss, right? So I knew how to cuss at a very young age. And so then if I cussed, I'd be beaten, right? Because my mom would be like, whatever, stop talking like that, or, you're not allowed to say that sort of stuff, right? And I'd be like, well, you're saying it. And then, of course, I'd get a beating, right? And so, I was just copying what she said. So I took that out onto the streets, and I had a really foul mouth until I was about 21. And finally, I decided to straighten it up because I thought, well, if I'm going to go working or be in an office and a professional, then I can't have this really foul mouth, because it doesn't sound right. And I started to realize it didn't sound right, and so I did try to clean it up. And over the years, I've still had some problems with it, but I've been working on it for a long, long time, and now it's not too bad. I don't cuss a whole lot. I did when I was working back in the kitchens. A lot of times in the kitchens, in the industry, it's so stressful. It's quite stressful, that job, and there's quite often people will cuss and stuff. But once I got out of that, back into the professional, administration type work, that just goes away. So I don't cuss like I used to. But this is the thing. Pretty soon, before we know it, we might be thinking of cussing other people out because we were cussed out, right? We were verbally abused, so we do that, right? So this is the whole thing. It's what people. It's how you grow up. Becomes part of your behavior, and unless you learn how to change it, you could go on to do that to somebody else. So continuing to live the shame-based script that was foisted on you can turn your life into catastrophe. It says your sense of defectiveness leads to a variety of negative outcomes based on what you think and how you behave as you go through the motions of your life, and it's a shame-based drama you are living out. This can include angry and hostile attitudes that only get worse as you age and drive away even the people who try to be close to you. True intimacy is beyond your grasp. The script keeps you from being able to connect with others in an honest and meaningful way. The idea of being close is just too scary, and you just expect that they will end up hurting you in the same way that you were hurt in the past. And a profound feeling of loneliness and estrangement follows, and you may not even know why. So that's just it. It's that whole, self-protection, inability to trust and to learn to trust, right? But we do have to be very careful. And we have to know what our, like I'm saying, we have to know what our boundaries are, what proper boundaries are, what we're going to allow people to do and how we're going to allow them to treat us in our life if we're going to get into a relationship. And we have to set very, very clear standards on what we will allow and what we won't, because otherwise you can end up back in an abusive relationship. But you do, it's sad to not be able to trust, and quite often that's the case. And so, there's never any of that closeness. There's never any, you just never find that relationship, that meaningful, relationship, because just thinking, well, they'll just hurt me, they'll just use me, and they'll just hurt me, and because this is the stuff that we believe because we've been abused as children. We take this on that everybody is just out to hurt us, right? And I mean, because when you grow up like that, it pretty much is true. I mean, it's like you definitely have to, you have to wear that cap, because if when you're living in that reality of being abused as a child, that is the truth. It's very rare that somebody will step in and get you any help, and quite often people don't get any help from anyone. No support from siblings, no support from any other family members. So you just start to think that the whole world's out to hurt you, except for minus a few friends that you manage to make along the way. And then if they hurt you, then it becomes this whole, oh my God, everybody is just so untrustworthy. And that was me even about 5 years ago, because I had a great friendship with a person, and it just lasted for so long. And we were like best friends, and then she just broke my heart. She just ripped my heart out, and I thought, oh my God, I can't even trust people that I think I can trust. And I hung around with this person every single day for like 13 years or 14 years. I thought, how well do you think you know somebody? And then they go and rip your heart out. But you know what? I decided, okay, I'm not going to allow that to stop me from trusting and from, building other relationships and whatnot. I'm just going to be very, very careful about who I let in my life. And the first sign of any kind of mistreatment or ill whatever, they're gone. Bye-bye, right? I got no time for people like that. So it's very, very sad that, we have to suffer through this stuff. Absolutely. So the shame-based person experiences an interruption of spontaneous behavior, a loss of energy, paralysis, and immobilization. It takes an enormous amount of energy to play the roles that contradict who you really are and have the potential to be. And this saps your motivation and often limits your ability to take positive risks. It frequently leads to feeling trapped or stuck in your personal or professional life. So shame is often accompanied by the belief that you are powerless and being victimized by everyone and everything around you. This only increases your anger, hostility, and desire for revenge. It says this belief also decreases further your willingness to actually do something positive to move your life in a more healthy direction. So sadly, however, shame often promotes your willingness to take negative and self-destructive risks, such as drinking and driving, verbally and physically assaulting others, which only creates consequences and even more shame. So that's just sad, isn't it? It says the end result of this role you have taken on is an overwhelming sense of despair, cynicism, hopelessness, and stagnation. And this is one dramatic production where it is critical to review the part you've been playing up to now, work hard to discover your true self, and then start to live it out. Start to live that out. So that's really interesting, and I think that's awesome. We don't have to, we don't have to keep that life script that was made for us as children, growing up in an abusive home. We can write our own new life script, right? And that's what I'm doing. And thank God, that's what I would hope everybody would do. Throw away the old script that was given to you by your abusers and get a new life script. And have a good life. You make the script, so you make it as great as you want it to be. And then, that's what I'm doing. And I hope other people do that too. I love what he's written here, Dave Decker here. www.angerresources.com. This is what I've been reading from. It's www.angerresources, angerresources.com. The Shame Rage Connection. So, thanks everybody for tuning in. Got about a minute left. I'll be back on tomorrow morning, same time, One Child Abuse Survivor to another, and we'll just continue looking at this. This is very, very interesting. And I'll be back on again Friday night as well, Dreamcatchers Talk Radio. Be sure and catch Dreamcatchers Talk Radio tonight. Elizabeth Brawley will be on at 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. www.blogtalkradio.com/Dreamcatchers. And I'm going to try to be there for sure. I always like to catch her shows. She's awesome. And, yeah, everybody take care of yourselves. Make sure you reach out and get some help, whether it's a counselor, a therapist, group support, online group support, whatever you have to do. Call a crisis line, right? If you have to, you call a crisis line if you can't cope, Make sure you get some help, and because you do deserve it, you do count, you do matter, and I'm just going to keep on saying that because that's the truth, right? We all do, and we didn't deserve the abuse that we suffered. Make sure you reach out and get some help, right? And we'll talk to you guys later. Have a good day. Bye-bye.